time to leave Yabberup and head to Nagara. Sounds like we're continually going up. A little bit of rain overnight, but most of it actually fell prior to sunset, some of it quite heavy. Some cloud around at the moment, doesn't look overly threatening, even some blue sky, so some sunlight breaking through the canopy here. About 20 k's today. Should be pretty smooth. Seems to be reasonably rolling, if not considerably downhill through the early stages, and then a bit of a bite in the back end as it climbs up to the Yabberup campsite, but looking forward to a good day. First time we've walked on this hike after heavy rain, and it really is quite different. You don't get the crackle of the leaves underfoot. It's far softer with all the leaves having been wet overnight. There's a little bit of a glisten in the trees. It just has a cooler feel about everything, even though it hasn't rained since, well, probably well before midnight. But it was a fairly heavy downpour, and it actually makes it feel a whole lot better this morning. You feel a little bit fresher, and you got to sort of get the feeling at times that you're bouncing along the surface rather than necessarily just walking on top of it. So a different experience. Sun's out, pretty much blue sky now, so things will dry out, and probably by tomorrow with no rain the leaves will be back to their crunchy selves. But today it's very pleasant walking. Just over 5 k's from Yabberup, and we've come across Glen Mervin Dam, which is quite pretty. Sounds like there's a bit of a major road directly on the other side of it though, but quite a substantial dam and quite pretty with the sun out early in the morning. Probably a good reason why I'm a sports broadcaster and not a weather presenter, or perhaps more importantly, or correctly, a meteorologist. My prediction from earlier this morning that it looked like we were going to be in for a pretty good day, weather-wise, may be on the turn. The rain covers on the back of the backpack and the cloud is really starting to close in, so hopefully it doesn't look overly threatening. We may get a shower or two, but in the space of a couple of hours it's gone from relatively nice to potentially a little threatening. The site of the old Mumbleup school didn't last very long, 4 years, from July 1911 through to July 1915. We're on Preston Road now, so we've come down out of the forest and you can see pastoral land and beautiful dam across the road on someone's local property. Quite beautiful. Here we are at one of the famed parts of the Bibbulmun Track, the Mumby pub, or the Mumbleup Forest Tavern as it's known. At the moment it's up for sale. Today's Wednesday. We're lucky the pub's not open on Mondays or Tuesdays. It's open today, but it opens in an hour's time at 11:30. It's currently 10:30, so we have a decision to make. Decision made. Jude's going to stay because Greg and Victoria, our New Zealand friends, are there. So I'm going to head over instead to camp. Get a bit of an early arrival. Got quite a bit of climbing ahead of us. Don't really fancy at the moment the 2-hour sit down by the time you get to finish your dinner. Don't know if I'll walk down the middle of the train line. Doesn't look like it's used anymore. But, as they say, better safe than sorry. Well, this is a bit of a tougher piece of walking here. We're just on a gravel road, and we have been for the best part of 2 kilometres, purely and simply because either side of us are rural properties, and it's one of the things that happens down around here through to the Balingup area and beyond, is you do have to spend a little bit of time off country, as you'd say, not on tracks through the forest, not on single track, not even on some 4-wheel drive tracks. It doesn't quite feel the same, I must admit, just pumping out the kilometres on a gravel road. Has to be done. Obviously they try to take the bib through state forest areas, but it can't be done everywhere. And right now, right here, this is one of them. Nice to be back in National Park again, off the gravel roads, in amongst the trees, over the rocks. Wildflowers still abound. This is more like the Bibbulmun Track. And here we are, the turn off to Nagara. Just over 20 k's completed. Already some people up in the hut. But here we are, we've made it, and I'm glad that I have. Well, in fact, I have got here effectively on my own. There's a couple who have just been dropped off down the road, just a little bit south. And they've just come in here and arranging their gear, and they've just headed off. They're heading up to Yabberup. So I'm here in Nagara, and I'll probably be about 2.5 hours on my own. So I might just put up the inflatable mattress, I reckon, and get the sleeping bag out, use it as a doona. I think they're going to run into a bit of rain, the other few coming this direction. But yeah, nice little hut. There would be a creek normally running just down there in the, well, dell, but no water going through there at the moment. Time for me to have a bit of relax. My normal space up the top, mattress blown up, so too the pillow. The silk liner though is getting a little bit of an airing, just hanging over the edge, as are the shorts, as is the sleeping bag. Just letting that hang down and get a little bit of air into it. Not that there's much movement inside here. The bag sitting there, everything that needs to be unloaded has been. I'm dressed in my camp gear, got the leggings on, the puffer jacket, and base layer, shirt, just being aired as well, and so too just drying the pack liner. And I've got my Helinox chair set up. So now that everything's done, I'm going to sit down, have a relax and wait for the others to arrive. Heading out of Nagara on our way to Grimwade. There's a couple of very light showers overnight. The ground's still a little bit damp in some places. Actually, it's a little bit clay, if there is such a word. Looking overhead, it is, well, there's no sun, let's put it that way, and there's no blue sky at the moment. That may change later in the day. One of the things when you're out in an area like this, phone reception can be very minimal, or last night, nothing. So we can only really go on what we see overhead. But we're probably going to get a sprinkle or two today. We've already got the pack covers on. 22 kilometres today with a fair bit of rise and fall. None of it, from what we can understand looking at the various pieces of information we've got, are going to be overly steep. But it is going to be a rolling day, 22 k's. Looking forward to getting to Grimwade, hopefully reasonably dry. Nice gentle start to the day. We're walking on what would have been an old logging railway formation. So it's pretty straight and the angle won't be too great. Climbed 30 metres in about a kilometre and a bit. So it's a nice smooth way to start the day. When I say smooth, underfoot with the rain, the clay is actually a little bit slippery. You just need to make sure you put your feet in the right place every time. Otherwise, very smooth sailing. Bib handbook for this particular stage says 7.5 kilometres away from Yabberup is a nice little place to have a break, and it certainly is. I'm just standing on a very small bridge, but it's quite a beautiful area because it is covered with lichen and moss, and it's actually very, very cool down here. Wouldn't exactly call it a valley, more of a dell, but there are a lot of ferns around. There's also the buds of ferns which are about to break out in all their glory. But it is actually a very pretty place down here. Dead calm. You can hear the birds every now and then. Jude's just packing up, having made a cup of tea. We've got a fairly significant climb directly ahead of us. But the moss down here, the ferns, you can tell that it's an area along the escarpment that gets a fair bit of rain.
At the top of New Zealand. in mid-October, I think, and I finished mid-March.
A little bit of an earlier start this morning. We're only about 100 metres outside the Grimwade Hut, heading towards Balingup. Unlike dwelling up in Collie, we're only staying for one night in Balingup and then pushing on tomorrow towards Donnelly River Village. Today's about 23, 24 kilometres. Most of the up and down hill is in the early stages, so get it out of the way and then hopefully cruise on into Balingup. We're leaving a bit early because the tourist centre at which we need to get our resupply box closes at 3. Equally as importantly, the cafes close at 3 and we both need a cappuccino. Weather-wise, oh yes, and carrot cake. This is the problem when you walk so close to her. She can hear what I'm saying. Overhead at the moment, a bit of light cloud. We don't think there's any rain today, so hopefully it'll be a smooth one all the way to the little logging town of Balingup. A couple of Kiwis have just overtaken us. Greg and Victoria, who we will see in Balingup at some stage at the cafe.
At the cafe, very good.
Rabbit has been with me since about 2015, and Rabbit's got a really good story. I was walking the Southwest Coastal Path and I kept crossing paths with a guy called Keith, and we'd taken the mickey. He was walking it a very different walk to me and I was wild camping a lot of the time, and he kept saying to me he imagined me out at night catching and skinning wild rabbits and cooking them while I was out in the bush, and I wasn't. Anyway, story rolls on, get to near Plymouth, and I had stress fractures in the base of my femur, and I had to stop the walk, which really upset me, and I basically cried all day, on and on, because I was just devastated. Anyway, unbeknown to me, Keith, he carried on, he bought Rabbit, and Rabbit walked the rest of the Southwest Coastal Path with him. And then when
Didn't he lose Rabbit at one stage?
Oh yeah, he did. He lost Rabbit, and he was actually walking back kilometres to get Rabbit, but someone had picked Rabbit up. So Rabbit then was given to me, and I went back and walked the rest of the Southwest Coastal Path with Rabbit. There's Rabbit. Hello, Rabbit. And so Rabbit completed it with me, and Rabbit's been with me since, and Rabbit cycled all through Morocco and Europe, and all through New Zealand, and has done every hike and bike touring trip ever since. I love Rabbit.
Now, because we had Rabbit, I felt I needed to get something. So when we did our food supply drop, we started at Denmark, worked our way back, and we went to Walpole. And where we dropped it off at the tourist centre, I bought Kevin the kangaroo. But yesterday afternoon, we were stopping for a cup of tea, and Jude started to stroke Kevin's belly and found out that Kevin has a pouch. So Kevin is now Carrie Kangaroo, maybe spelt K-A-R-R-Y,
double R-I, as in the trees. But a wholehearted apology to you, Kevin, for 3 weeks. Sorry, wholehearted apology to Carrie. For 3 weeks, you were Kevin. But anyway, there's Carrie. We've seen Rabbit. We're having a coffee, and we're having a great day.
Totally different environment here. As I step through a very marshy bit, we've got some pine trees, pine cones around as well. Unusual. Haven't seen this before. Well, we've seen some pine trees from a distance, but not actually walking amidst them as we are at the moment. So here we are, we've reached the visitor centre. Time to pop in and get our resupply bag. Ah, beautiful. It even has our name on it.
Under the tablecloth.
Excellent.
Grubs up.
There goes Vicky and Greg. They're a bit quicker than what we are. So we'll see them in 6 or 7 hours at Blackwood Hut. As we're leaving Balingup, we'll actually walk past the driveway leading up to where we stayed last night in about 2k's time.
Sounds like my knee.
I'm going to say, I thought it was your knee there for a second.
Oh, that stinks.
Bit on the nose, isn't it? That's the creek, ladies and gentlemen, not me, I think. Here we are at the Blackwood Hut, climbing in the end just over 500 metres, and a beautiful view we'll have this evening and also in the morning. Looking forward to it immensely. Different digs tonight, different accommodation. We're in our tents up It's 2 stages, 2 levels away from the hut. So mine already up, so too is Jude's. Greg was up a moment ago actually, wanting to show us some photos, and actually was able to snap a couple of new ones, Jude, wasn't he?
Yes. So I was sat there.
Well, you were standing actually, but
No, I was sat
you
in
were
my chair.
sitting there.
I was
Okay.
sat in my chair, and a probably 1.5 metre
Dugite.
dugite just slithered down here and into that little hole there.
Yeah, it came slithering straight down those rocks and has gone into that hole just there. Now, we don't know whether he's going to come out again tonight. We'll keep an eye on him. Certainly in the morning when we're de-rigging and pulling things down, we'll keep an eye on him. But yeah, it's the 3rd snake we've seen, and Jude had been a little bit quicker, she could have shaken hands with it. Anyway, we'll keep an eye out and see whether he wants to come out again and say hello.